Okay, welcome to lesson 4, your body and stress. So what if you do nothing about your stress? You probably already know the answer because you felt it, but I'm going to dive deep into that today. So you know that stress is a feeling, but why is that bad for your body? The key thing to remember here is that feelings are also felt in the body and they have real effects. So what I'm going to go over today is how stress can cause disease by hurting the only body you have, how stress decreases your longevity, according to science, and your nervous system, that's what connects the mind to the body. And how is it that thoughts exist in the brain and how they can connect to every nerve ending in your body. And then I'm going to go over heart rate variability, which is a new way to measure stress for you techies out there who are data driven and just love to look at the numbers. It's not stress that kills us, it is our reaction to it. Hans Selye. So we established in lesson 2 that our thoughts are due to stress, and you can be tossed around like a washing machine, getting beaten by waves, and you can feel like you're drowning instead of surfing those waves. So what effect does that have in the body? Any diabetic can tell you that their blood sugar goes up whenever they're sick or stressed out. It's an extremely frustrating place to be. And then I can tell you from being in the ER, every time someone comes in, their blood pressure is usually a bit elevated. Usually as they stay in the ER and settle down a bit, it does come down. But sometimes it stays up, and I kind of joke with the patients, well, the ER isn't exactly a nice stress-free environment. You know, we got bright lights, we're poking you with needles, we're squeezing your arm and, interviewing you with questions. So, sometimes the ER can be a very stressful place to be, and we definitely see that a lot in our numbers for blood pressures. And the stress hormones coursing through the body have an effect on your body. They're known to decrease your immune system, so you're not able to fight off viruses and bacteria. And this also makes you gain weight, so you get to be prone to obesity and everything that goes along with that. It's also implicated in depression and in anxiety. You can have digestive problems like upset stomach and bowel issues. And as I mentioned, diabetes. That tension can lead to headaches, allergies, asthma, and the list goes on. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in the United States, and stress only makes it worse. So as I just mentioned, there's a long list of diseases caused by stress. And the top scary ones I hear in the ER are listed here: heart disease, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, etc. So not only does it have an effect on disease, but it shortens your life in other measurable ways. So in your DNA, and I'll go through the science here in a second. So this is where the concept of longevity comes in. So telomeres are part of your genetic code. They're protective caps on your DNA, that genetic code that lives inside every cell in our body, and they naturally shorten as you age. So these are used as a marker of kind of age, and but then they also realize that they can be used for stress. So the way that telomeres work in your DNA is that they work kind of like where your shoelace is, that little end, so that they don't unravel. And every time that the DNA is opened up and the genes are made, it keeps those genes from fraying and getting all mixed up, or even chopped off when the cell divides and grows. So longer telomeres are associated with longer life, and stress shortens those telomeres. So here's some good news. So there's one way to decrease that. A study at the University of Calgary showed that breast cancer survivors who underwent stress reduction and an emotional support program actually changed their genes. They did a 3-month program on stress relief, and they were able to maintain the length of those telomeres as opposed to a control group who didn't get that training. And the control group who didn't get the training had that normal age-related shortening. So this study from the University of Calgary showed kind of an anti-aging effect of stress relief techniques, and that lowering your stress levels could literally slow the aging process, even if you've had something as serious as cancer. So this is another way that stress can literally be measured in your DNA with the right tools. Here's the study that shows the negative effects of stress on the telomeres. So it looked at the amount of intense stress faced by mothers who took care of chronically ill children. So a lot of high stress over many years. The mothers answer a questionnaire about their perceived level of stress, like I feel this level of stress like 1 to 10. But so that was what they reported. But then they also actually took their blood samples and checked their telomere length from that. So not only did they report higher stress levels, so they said subjectively, I feel more stress, but they were also more overweight. And then when they looked at their telomeres, unfortunately, what they found is that it correlated to between a 9 and a 17-year difference in perceived age of that mom compared to the low stress group. And then finally, even worse, it's been measured to cause early death too. So a study published in the Journal of American Medical Association, the JAMA, looked at caregivers over the age of 66 who had to take care of their spouses who were disabled, and then they looked at those questionnaires who reported mental or emotional strain due to that level of caregiving. And then over a 4-year study, caregivers who reported higher mental strain were 63% more likely to die. It was literally associated with a more than 50% chance, a very high chance of death. So stress has real, measurable effects. So here's the good news. You can do something about this, like the breast cancer study showed. So first off, let's understand exactly how mental stress affects the body and how it does this. So this is a nice chart, but let's focus on kind of the right side, that yellow side. So you have the nervous system, which is all the nerves in your body, which includes brain, spinal cord, and all the nerve endings. That's divided firstly into 2 groups, the brain and then the nervous system, which is more kind of the peripheral part. And that's what carries messages to and from the brain to the body. That's divided further into the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The somatic system, you know, of like when I just touch my ear, I'm using my somatic system. I can feel something, and so then I kind of take an action with my mind, like voluntarily. The autonomic nervous system, here on the right side, that part is not under conscious control. This part is activated from the lowest part of your brainstem and your spinal cord. And it's kind of like an autopilot mode that you can't really turn off or on. It just does what it does. And this has 2 parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So let's go first talk about the sympathetic. You've probably heard this term, fight, flight, or freeze. Sympathetic is all about burning energy. And it becomes on when you perceive stress. So sympathetic stress. This can be simple, as what the sympathetic nervous system does is rerouting blood to your muscles. Say you want to leap tall mountains with a single bound, that's good, right? So you want your sympathetic to help you with that. And then, maybe it's as simple as, you see a wasp land on your arm and you're like, whoa, your heart rate will go up and you kind of can feel just like a jumping, woo. So this is what allows our daily activities, allows us to do our daily activities and even ramp up to do things like exercise and walk around and go about our day. You can't have too much of a good thing though. The sympathetic nervous system also tells your liver to make glucose, typically in preparation for some kind of activity, but sometimes that's just what we perceive, so that blood sugar goes up and may make your diabetes worse. And then it also increases your blood pressure because you're maybe getting ready to sprint away from a tiger. But what that does is then it raises your blood pressure, which predisposes you to things like stroke. And then another thing the sympathetic nervous system does when it's overactive and chronically overactive is it turns off your stomach and intestines so they're not really going as much, and that can lead to some big stomach upset problems. So then let's go to the other half, the parasympathetic, and that is the rest and digest. This is the calming part of the nervous system. And so imagine you've just eaten a giant meal and all you want to do is lay around and watch TV. When you're doing this, you're not about to go run a 10K. You're just going to rest and let your stomach do its thing. You're in a kind of chill mode. So when you do this, blood reroutes from your muscles back to your intestines so they can do their thing. Your heart rate drops. You're not preparing for anything big and scary. And your blood pressure drops and your muscles just relax so that tension leaves your body. You don't want too much of either parasympathetic or sympathetic. They're both good for you to survive on this earth. And what we want to do is have that balance. But in this day and age, a lot of us are used to sympathetic, just, the volume on that being turned up to 11. The key thing is you can do something about this. Stress is perceived. That's what we know turns that sympathetic off or on, is that your perception of that stress. Stress is a thought, like we mentioned before. If you think you're about to get attacked, your sympathetic will take over. On the other hand, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm nice and safe in my house, I'm protected, nothing can harm me, your parasympathetic will take over in response to that. So you change your thoughts, you change your perception of the situation, and that is how you attain that balance in your autonomic nervous system. This autopilot mode is always listening to your thoughts, even if you're not paying attention to your thoughts. Your autonomic nervous system is definitely paying attention. So that's why we have to pay attention. And once you develop that awareness, your body will respond. And you won't have to worry about all these dangerous things I just talked about. And that's where this course comes in, and I will be teaching you all of these things. For you data-driven number crunchers, I have a suggestion to help you kind of more measure and quantify your stress. Heart rate can go up in response to stress. We all know that. Like I said, the sympathetic will make your heart rate jump up, or beats per minute. But there's an even better measurement than that, and it's called heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is a new way to track kind of your general well-being and particularly stress resilience. The concept is based on that a healthy heartbeat is less like a metronome, like a dun, 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 very rhythmic, on point, and more variable between the beats. So what happens is you get your heartbeat, and what I'm showing here is an EKG, and those spiky bits are what we call the R wave. And you measure the distance between the R wave, called the R to R interval. And we measure this in milliseconds, and I've given the example, sometimes it's 973 milliseconds, sometimes it's 1102 milliseconds. So that's some variability. It's not always 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000 milliseconds. Sometimes it's 900, sometimes it's more. And what this variability, this increased variability means, more agility. And again, this is different than heart rate. While more stress means higher beats per minute, this more nuanced marker of the variability is the measurement of time between beats. And this interval measurement is more sensitive to stress, so is a better marker to measure. So imagine you like a seesaw. I had that seesaw where you have that balance. The reason that heart rate variability, you want a high level of that, is because you have the numbers change. But if you have that seesaw, like I said, and it's thumped down and the sympathetic is screaming so loud that the parasympathetic can't say anything, then it's going to be just like sympathetic 1,000, sympathetic 1,000, sympathetic 1,000. And that autopilot heartbeat is only listening to that super loud sympathetic, like, hey, heartbeat, do this, go to 1,000, go to 1,000, go to 1,000. And the parasympathetic can't get a word in edgewise. So that's why variability is good, because it means that balance is shifted and the parasympathetic has a voice. And the reason for that is that the heart has this dynamic adaptive state. And this dynamic adaptive state responds to the signals of your autonomic nervous system. This dynamic variability, and dynamic means lots of change, variability to the environment, and really the environment of what's going on in your brain, is reflective of your nervous system regulation and for your ability of your parasympathetic rest and digest activity to speak up. So both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic are competing for the heartbeat, and a good balance shows that fluctuation. And because of this, research studies often use the heart rate variability as one way to scientifically quantify the stress level. And then just as an aside, this has become pretty popular in like athletic performance and fitness performance measurements as a measure of like fitness training and efficiency, like leading up to an event. So if you start to dig into that, you might come across that. And if you're curious about measuring your own heart rate variability, there's some technology out there that you can go dig into on your own time. So to summarize, your body and stress leads to disease in the body, and basically stress is bad for you and your body. Stress and longevity. Stress shortens your life by affecting your DNA. Mainly those telomeres, like I mentioned, is how we measure that, but it literally changes your genes. And then stress has an effect on the body through the nervous system, and what you want to do is keep that in balance by activating less sympathetic and putting in more parasympathetic, or the rest and digest. And then finally, stress can be measured by your techies out there with heart rate variability, which is kind of an objective measure of stress and what some scientists use when they publish articles on this. So your extra credit for this week is a 2-minute meditation. What you're going to want to do is just sit right here and either put your phone on a timer or your watch or whatever have you. And then just right here at your desk, doesn't even matter what's going on. And I just want you to watch your breathing, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. That is it. That's it. And what you may notice is you getting bored. That's okay. All you got to do is begin again. Just inhale, exhale. Notice every nuanced little detail about the breath. Where it goes in your nose, what it sounds like, what it feels like when your chest expands. Try to notice that minute where you go from the inhale to the exhale. What does that feel like? Is that like a wave that you can ride? Like what's going on there? Thoughts will come up. Thoughts will come up as you do this 2-minute breathing exercise. It's okay. If you notice it, that is actually the practice of noticing. You notice the thoughts and then you're like, okay, now I'm going to go back to noticing the breath. So you want to focus on noticing the breath. You'll then notice your thoughts play into it and you notice the thoughts distracted you and then you go back. And that is the practice. So it's okay. It's okay if you feel like you messed up. The key thing is it's a practice. You do it again every single day as much as you can. So take care. Download the course materials at stressreleasesurvivalguide.com.